The bold ones. Burl Ives. Joseph Campanella. James Ferrantino. Lawyers defending justice in the nation's courtrooms. Leslie Nielsen. Harry Rhodes, public servants enforcing the laws of a challenging society. E.G. Marshall. John Saxon. David Hartman, doctors expanding the horizons of the new medicine. The bold ones.
Sorry, boys, we're in a hurry.
There's always time for a few questions.
Word has it you're representing Frank DeLacy.
We haven't been hired to represent anyone yet.
Then why are you going to see him?
Why don't you check us after we've seen him, then maybe we'll all
He
know.
didn't fly all the way down here to Atlanta to look at the prison. I've heard DeLacy is trying to get out doing the rest of his
Gentlemen,
time.
Mr. DeLacy belongs in prison. He'll stay there. If not, he should be set free. Now, if any of you know of a better system of jurisprudence, we'd sure like to hear about it. Okay?
Come on, give us a break. One more question.
It's not that I got it so bad in here. In fact, I never knew you could have it so good by just cooperating. But prison is still prison. And 15 more years is heavy time no matter how you do it. I sent for you guys because I hear you're good. And I want some real good talent going for me for a change. I want out.
Seems to me that that would be the last place you'd want to be.
I'm dead if I stay in here. Do you know why I started singing my brains out? Because they put out a contract on me before I even said one word. That's why. At first, I hear the rumbles, but I don't believe it. Then one day I'm taking a shower. Some con tries to put me away with a steel pipe. If the guards don't hear the noise, I'm dead right there. As it is, I spent 2 months in the hospital. They shouldn't have done that.
Well, why did they? Rumor is that when you worked for them, you held out some money.
Okay, so maybe I played it a little cute. But that's still not the way to handle it. They could have come to me and told me. Once I knew they knew, I'd have settled up with them. I've been 20 years a good street soldier. Putting a contract out on me wasn't the right thing for them to do. That's why I started my singing act. I figured I better start trading and get some special treatment real fast. But sooner or later, I'm gonna run out of songs. Then they put me back in the cell block, and I don't last 24 hours.
Well, on the outside, I don't think you'd last until lunch.
Wrong. I got over $1 million stashed away in banks all over Europe. I know how to get to it. Once I do, I drop out of sight, make myself invisible, until I die of old age.
Now, how do you intend to do that?
Look, all you have to know is that I'll be okay once I'm on the outside. Your job is to get me there.
And how are we supposed to do that? You haven't got a chance on appeal.
I know that. What I want is a new trial. Get Stark in here. The minute I hear you're coming, I get Stark to be here, too. You know Arnold Barnes, the genius who was my defense attorney at the trial. This is Jameson Stark, Barnes' law clerk. Tell him what you told me.
Barnes is a drunk. The past few years, he's been killing a fifth of whiskey every day. Who knows how much he goes through nights and weekends. That's even during the trial when he was supposed to be defending Mr. DeLacy.
What was the judge doing all this time? Serving hors d'oeuvres?
Barnes is the kind of a drinker who boozes all day, but never shows it. His speech is clear, his walk is straight. But he was dead drunk every day at that trial. I can prove it.
How?
Part of my job was seeing I had a bottle ready for him all the time. 1/5 a day, right down to that wooden leg of his.
Why didn't you say so at the time?
I was working for him then.
And you're not working for him now?
No.
How much you paying him?
5,000. What difference does it make? He's telling the truth. That's the important thing.
Look, I'm not dumb enough to lie under oath. Whatever I've told you today is the truth. I'm going to make a great witness.
Well, what do you think? Can I get a new trial?
Well, if what he says is true, yes, a new trial is a distinct possibility.
You guys gonna handle it for me? Look, they had no real case against me, and here I am sitting in the camp for 15 years. If I had any kind of a decent defense attorney, I'd have beaten it. The law says I'm entitled to the best defense possible, guilty or not. I didn't get that. Now, are you guys gonna be the lawyers you're supposed to be and get me a fair trial?
Mr. DeLacy, you don't have to lecture us on legal ethics. You are entitled to the best possible defense. Now, if your attorney was drinking 1/5 of whiskey every day of that trial, you didn't get it. Now, we'll check it out, and if that was the case, we'll get you a new trial.
Mr. Costelli asked me to meet your client. This isn't an official Justice Department request, but he'd like to talk to you.
Sure, why not?
This is Maria DeLacy, your client's daughter. Walt Nichols, Brian and Neil Darrow.
How do you do?
Be seated, gentlemen. Maria and I have something in common. I'll let her tell you about it first.
I know my father hired you, and I know you're doing as he asked. But he's got to stay where he is. At least in prison, he'll be able to stay alive.
Well, we've gone over all that with him. He assures us he knows how to handle it.
My Uncle Vincent is a mafia don. My uncles Gino, Cesare, and Thomas are capos. All my male cousins are good soldiers of the street. Ever since my father started to testify, I've heard the men in my family talk. I know what they're going to do. Once he's outside of prison, there's no way my father's going to escape. There's no place on this earth he can hide. They will find him, and they'll kill him no matter where he goes.
And we lose the most valuable source of information on mafia operations this country has ever had. DeLacy has given us our first detailed, authentic look inside organized crime. And there's still a lot he hasn't told us. It would be tragic if we lost him now.
Look, we spent the last 5 days checking over his trial. And there's no question about it. His lawyer was drunk every day in both a legal and medical sense. That means he did not have a proper defense. So we are going to apply for a new trial. We don't feel there's any choice left for us.
My father's guilty. He's guilty of crimes far worse than the one he was convicted for. How can you defend a man who's guilty?
Mr. Lacey, whether he's guilty or innocent has nothing to do with it. We don't have the right to judge him, but we do have the obligation to provide a competent defense for him or anyone else who needs it.
You know Maria is right. You get him off, he's dead. It'll be as if you helped execute him.
He's made up his mind. He wants out.
He's not about to commit suicide. And he says he has a plan that'll get him away free and clear.
Show me a con who doesn't have a plan. If he gets a new trial and wins, he's out of our custody. When that happens, he's had it.
But that's still his choice to make, isn't it?
We going to ride back in your nice, new, shiny black car, or do we call a taxi?
It's all right. My assistant will drive you back to the city.
You know, the girl could be right. We might be setting DeLacy up for an execution. And that we don't have to do.
Walt, he knows the Mafia better than she does. If he figures he can make it, who will we say he can't?
Besides, DeLacy's going to get a new trial, whether we handle it for him or not.
Right on both counts. Which forces us into an extra job. Seeing to it that the outside executioner doesn't get to him. Of course, there will be maximum security at the trial and limit the spectators, waive a jury, that sort of thing. But if we win, the real problem will come after the trial.
DeLacy may have a plan to get out of the country by plane.
But what he will need is a plan to get from federal custody to that plane. Don't you think we'd better supply that for him?
Maria! Maria.
Hello, Don Paceto.
Sit down, please. Little refreshment? Sweet?
No, nothing, thank you.
How nice to see you, Maria. But you should have called me. If I'd known you were coming, I would have had someone pick you up at the airport.
I didn't want to impose.
How could it be an imposition? You're my wife's goddaughter. And after such a long time. How long has it been? Since, before your father went to prison. I should be very angry with you, but it's such a great pleasure to see you.
Don Paceto, is it all right? I'd like to speak with you alone.
I have no secrets from my consigliere. What is it you want to talk to me about?
My father. I'm sure you've heard he's going to get a new trial.
Yes.
Don Paceto, I've come to beg you, if my father's free, to use your influence, to keep him alive.
Is that what brings you to Don Paceto? To beg?
Mercy for your father? You're my wife's goddaughter. I remember the day you were born. I was there when you were baptized. Your father has made many terrible mistakes. I know how frightened you are to tell me these things, but I want you to know one thing. What you ask of me, there is no need to ask.
I knew you would be merciful. But if he's freed, your mercy will not be enough.
Oh, you're concerned about the other families. That proves you're out of touch with things as they are today. Our businesses are thriving. The old methods are very bad for business. So you see, you have nothing to worry about. Nothing at all.
Thank you, Don Paceto. Thank you.
It is nothing, Maria. I wish all the favors that were asked of me were as easy to grant as this one. Now, are you going to be able to stay a while and visit with your godmother?
Yes, for a while. I have to catch the 4 o'clock flight.
Good. When you're ready to leave, Joseph will drive you to the airport. Please come and visit us again real soon, huh? Frank DeLacy is a very lucky man, isn't he, Joseph? You have such a beautiful and loyal daughter.
Very. And he's also fortunate. Times have changed. I agree with everything you said to her. If DeLacy gets off, he'll disappear. He won't be of any help to the government, and he won't be a problem to us. To kill him would be expensive and unnecessary.
You are my consigliere, and I value your counsel as I do no other man's. However, there are times when our opinions must differ. And this is one of them. Frank DeLacy made many terrible mistakes. He was irresponsible, and he was disloyal. When he testified, he did more than cost us men and money. He broke the law of silence, omerta, the premise upon which we exist. If he is allowed to live, he will destroy that premise, and we will be destroyed. It's a matter of discipline. Am I being unreasonable, Joseph? It's all settled then. I want to call a meeting with the 5 families. I want to put all the button men out on the street. Make the most complete plans. We'll get the most reliable people.
I'll see to it, Don Paceto.
How does it look for DeLacy's trial?
He's got some good lawyers this time. If I have to make a guess, I'd say he has a fair chance.
How do we give him a better chance?
One witness we can get to. The other one is a pusher by the name of Charlie Harris. We can't do business with him. Can't be trusted. If he testifies the way he did the last time, he keeps DeLacy on ice.
Then he must not testify, Joseph.
Your Honor, the prosecution now calls James Doro to the witness stand. Bailiff.
Your name?
James Doro.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the cause pending before this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This you do under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Be seated.
please tell the court what you do for a living, Mr. Doro?
I'm a retailer.
And what do you retail? Shoes, groceries, what? And wasn't your narcotics wholesaler once the defendant, Frank DeLacy?
Objection. Prosecutor is leading the witness.
Sustained.
They got to him.
Mr. Doro, I don't have to remind you of the severe penalty for perjury, do I?
Objection, Your Honor. The prosecutor's attempting to impeach his own witness.
Sustained. Strike Mr. Castelli's last question from the record. Proceed, Mr. Castelli. And please remember that he's your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Who was your narcotics wholesaler?
Oh, I had lots of them.
Was the defendant, Frank DeLacy, one of them?
No.
He's gonna be all right, isn't he? I tried to stop, I tried. But my brakes, they just wouldn't hold.
Mr. Doro, you're aware that there's a statement in evidence, sworn to and signed by you, in which you stated that Frank DeLacy was your narcotics wholesaler, aren't you?
Yes, but that's not true. I made that statement under duress.
Duress? Duress from whom?
Well, from this whole thing. From everybody. If you don't think you're under duress when you're getting busted, try it sometime. I was scared, and they gave me that thing about cooperating. So I cooperated. They gave me a statement to sign, and I signed it. Now, it was a lie, but I was still under pressure, and I signed it.
Do you realize that you could be sent up on a charge of perjury if you...
Objection.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but Mr. Doro should be advised of the severe charges of perjury that he leaves himself open to.
All right, all right. So I made a mistake, and I signed a false statement. If I got to pay for it, I pay for it.
The prosecution has no further questions to ask this witness. Your witness.
No questions.
I'm sending a copy of this witness's testimony to the United States Attorney's Office for further action. That'll be all, Mr. Doro.
Your Honor, the prosecution's next witness was to have been Mr. Charles Harris. I've just been told he's been killed in a motor accident moments ago. Therefore, the prosecution requests a recess.
You may have it. This court is recessed until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Really trying to get you out so they can get at you.
I'll take all the help they want to give me.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Prosecution ready to continue now?
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Maria DeLacy to the witness stand.
Will Maria DeLacy please take the witness stand? Your name?
Maria DeLacy.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly affirm that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This you do under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Be seated.
You are the daughter of the defendant, Frank DeLacy, isn't that right?
Yes.
Now, Miss DeLacy, in your own words, tell us exactly what happened on the night your father was arrested.
My father and I had just finished having dinner when he had two visitors, Charlie Harris and Jimmy Doro. I was cleaning up the dishes from the table, so I couldn't help but overhear what they said. They were negotiating a buy from my father.
Negotiating to buy what?
Heroin. 3 kilos of it.
Now, street salesmen like Harris and Doro weren't buying blind, were they?
Oh, no. My father had a sample packet that he was letting them examine while they were setting the price.
And you saw this sample in your father's hands. This heroin he was selling.
Yes.
She's lying. And what happened after the deal was made?
They all left together. They said something about going to the Elm Street house.
She didn't hear
where my
anything.
father would turn over the rest of the heroin to them.
Doro and Harris were there, but I never talked business
Thank
in the
you,
house.
Mr. Lacey. Your witness, Mr. Darrow.
Mr. Lacey, do you remember where you were on the afternoon of October 8th? For the record, please.
No, I don't.
Wasn't that the day that my partners and I met with you, Mr. Castelli? Mr. Lacey.
Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten the exact date.
Would you please tell the court what happened at that meeting?
Your Honor, I object to this line of questioning. It is irrelevant and immaterial.
It's the way it sounded to me, Mr. Darrow.
Your Honor, if you will allow me to continue, I can assure you the relevance will be made quite clear.
Subject to a motion to strike. All right, continue, but I may decide to stop you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Didn't that meeting concern your father in this trial?
Yes,
You were worried about his safety if he were to be let go, weren't you?
yes.
And because you were worried, you asked us not to take this case, didn't you?
Your Honor, I strongly object. This was a meeting between us and...
Mr. Castelli, the questions now appear to be material. I'm going to allow Mr. Darrell to make his point. Objection overruled. Proceed, Mr. Darrell.
I'll restate the question. Because you were worried, you asked us not to take this case, didn't you?
Yes.
And when that failed and you knew your father would come to trial, you then went to Mr. Castelli and offered to testify to ensure your father would remain in prison.
I offered to come here and tell the truth.
A deal was made, wasn't it?
No,
You weren't offered something in return for your testimony.
it's not the way you're making it sound. I went to Mr. Castelli and I told him that I had testimony to give, but that I wouldn't give it unless he promised that my father would be safe when he returned to prison.
And what did Mr. Castelli say to that?
He agreed. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with trying to get my father the extra protection he needs to keep him alive?
Nothing except you lied to arrange it.
No, I did not.
You lied to Mr. Castelli to get him to make the deal, and you're lying here in court. Isn't that the truth, Mr. Lacey?
I object, Your Honor. He's badgering the witnesses.
Sustained. No more of that, Mr. Darrell.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Mr. Lacey, is it fair to say that you want your father to remain in prison? Mr. Lacey.
Question should be answered.
With Your Honor's permission, I withdraw the question.
Mr. Darrell, have you concluded your cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Castelli?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Very well. The witness is excused. Bailiff? Would you help her, please? This court is recessed until 2 p.m.
I know why you did it, and it's all right. But I'm gonna be fine. If I go free, I'm gonna be just fine.
Papa, do you really believe that?
Yes, I do. But there's something I want you to understand, and I want you to try. Even if it goes wrong, Even if they get to me, it'll be better than being in prison. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying I'd rather be dead than spend one more night in prison.
In Los Angeles today, underworld figure Frank DeLacy won freedom when a federal judge acquitted him on 3 counts of possession and sale of narcotics. Tight security measures were strictly enforced at the trial of DeLacy, who has made headlines in recent years by testifying against many key mafia leaders. Press coverage of the trial was kept to a minimum, as was the number of spectators. DeLacy, who had been serving a long prison sentence at the federal penitentiary in Atlanta, recently secured a new trial when his attorneys were able to prove he had not received competent defense at his original trial.
All clear, Lieutenant.
All right, bring him on in. Walt, we've complied with your request. We've escorted your client and you to this destination. We've determined that the area is safe. Since he's been acquitted, my responsibility ends right here.
Lieutenant, before you go, I'd like to have a little talk with you. I want only you and Sergeant Luthart to hear what I have to say.
All right, fellas, you heard him. Wait outside. Walt, I don't know what you have in mind, but before you turn your overwhelming twinkle on me, let me restate something.
Lieutenant, do you remember when I defended Sergeant McCluskey and he was acquitted and he went back to work on the force?
Yeah?
And you remember we had a little talk after that? You remember what you said? You said, if you ever need a favor, just call on me. So I'm calling on you.
For what?
I want Sergeant Luther to take off his uniform and give it to Mr. DeLacy.
I can't permit that. Not to mention that impersonating an officer happens to be a misdemeanor.
Lieutenant, don't give me that legal stuff. Impersonating an officer requires an overt act, and there's not going to be any overt act. DeLacy, with 2 other uniformed officers, 4 plainclothesmen, and you and I are going to walk out of here. You see, 3 uniformed officers came in, and 3 are going to go out. And by the way, I'd like to remind you, he's still in your jurisdiction. And if he's killed in your jurisdiction, you might have a little problem.
You're asking me to make Sergeant Luther into a clay pigeon.
Sergeant Luther, would you be good enough to take your hat off, please? Now, if Sergeant Luther leaves this hotel with DeLacy's clothes on, no finger man from the Mafia or anybody else could imagine that he's DeLacy.
Okay. Okay. But I'm not going to order him to do it.
Sir, McCluskey was a friend of mine. I'd like to do it.
All right. Get out of the uniform. DeLacy? Walt, you are probably the sneakiest man I know. I've known some of the best.
And you, Lieutenant, are probably one of the best policemen I've ever known. And I've known some of the sneakiest.
They must have started a bridge game in there.
Well, see what I mean?
Yeah?
You stay here about an hour and you'll be okay.
Yes, sir. And don't worry, Lieutenant.
I'm not worried, Sergeant.
Hey, what's up, Lieutenant?
Shut up, Tim.
Yeah, but that's not Sergeant Luther.
As far as you're concerned, that is Sergeant Luther, at least until we get him out of town. DeLacy, when we get downstairs, you drive the unmarked car, and I'll get back with Mr. Nichols. You got that?
Yes, sir. I got it.
Well, Lieutenant, I guess that lets you over the hook.
Not quite, Walt. What about that uniform? The sergeant had to pay for it.
Oh, that'll be back this week, all cleaned and pressed.
Fair enough. And now we're even? Until one of us needs another favor.
All right, let's get out of here. I don't trust those guys.
Where are we going?
Straight ahead and fast.
Well, you gonna call the pilot?
You mind if I look the place over first?
Let's get out. Come on. Every time we go out, you've got to get bombed. We're going to go in there and we're going to get some coffee. I'm just sick and tired of the kids seeing you like this all the time. Come on now. Act like it's just for once.
You think it worked so far?
So far, it worked all right. When I left that hotel room, I figured everybody I'd see would look like a finger man. But you know what? I didn't see anybody that looked like a finger man. We were halfway through the lobby before the policemen realized they came in with a different man than they were going out with. It was easy. Maybe too easy.
Okay, it'll take us about an hour to get there.
Okay, let's go.
Hold it, Neil. Now, we've done pretty good so far, Frank, so I think we ought to pull a complete switch. Drop your plan and drive to Nogales or Flagstaff. Do anything but what you plan to do.
Why?
Because your plan's gone stale. It took you some time to set it up. That means the Mafia's had time to dig it up.
No dice, we go my way.
This man you just called, how do you know you can trust him?
2 reasons. When he gets me the way I'm going, he gets 50 grand. And there's nobody that hates the Mafia more than he does.
All right, how about telling us just where we're going?
Go straight down the highway to Highway 80. You turn right on 80 and go straight ahead. We'll get there in about an hour.
Highway 80? There's no airstrip out that way.
Who said anything about an airstrip?
Hey, Frank, is that you?
Yeah, stay right there. I'll come to you. I'd have you meet my friend, but he'd be coming back. I'm not very good at saying these things, but thanks for everything.
No thanks necessary. We were trapped by our principles.
Yeah, I know about principles. I had them once or twice.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Hey,
Gino.
didn't think you'd make it. Thank God. Let's get out of here.
I feel sick. I'd like to just disappear.
Where to?
I don't know, to the moon, maybe.
Mind if I go along?
I ought to remind you of something your father once said. The American adversary system is a wretched way to determine what law and justice are, but nobody has proposed anything better. I suggest we go into town and call the United States Attorney.